We just started talking about pancakes, Phil, which I thought was actually quite funny. And you just said about the first one always being rubbish. What's your pancake? What goes on your pancakes? Because we have just had Pancake Day or Shrove Tuesday, depending on.
Yeah. Well, as a kid, the go-to was lemon juice and sugar,
Ugh.
uh, or I mean, I don't know if I ever did add golden syrup as well, but a golden syrup one was very much in the list. Just recently, Pancake Day came and went, and we didn't do anything until the following night.
That's happened on my wedding anniversary before. I'm not joking.
Are we still talking pancakes?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still talking pancakes. Yeah.
All right.
We'll have to actually explain that one in a second.
I wasn't sure where that was going. I had, again, lemon and sugar. I think I did maple syrup.
Oh, nice.
And my lad had, I don't know, something in it. Might have been some fruit with a dollop of ice cream.
Oh, nice.
As well. But yeah, I remember one year it was pancake night, and I was an actual adult with no children, living in a flat, and a mate of mine came over, and we decided that before we went and played squash, like you do, we'd have pancakes. So I made some pancakes, and but I made sort of fried breakfast.
Ooh.
English breakfast pancakes.
Nice.
Which is basically just an excuse to have sausage, bacon, eggs.
Of course it is, yeah.
Wrapped up in a thing.
And tell everyone that Americans do this, so it's totally acceptable.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And there's no surprise that when it came to us playing squash, we weren't moving very quickly. To be fair, we were a bit stuffed. We made the mistake of having the pancakes up front. Should have saved them really for afterwards, but instead we saved ourselves a beer afterwards. So really, the squash bit in the middle was, something of a waste of time.
Amazing. You say that came and went. Before anyone gets any dodgy scenarios out of me, I came back from being out in London, and we were watching an episode of Benidorm. And there's an episode on Benidorm where I think it's Janice and Mick. He'd forgotten her wedding anniversary. My wife and I sat there watching TV. It's like 10 o'clock at night. I looked at her, she looked at me, and we went, fucking hell, it's her wedding anniversary today. We had both forgotten.
Brilliant.
So yeah, but quite funny. But so Phil, Escape the Corporate Wankery is the title of your book.
Yeah.
What a fucking brilliant title. We met a few weeks back, and I literally, as soon as I saw the title, I just thought, wow, what an awesome title. One, I love it because it's bold. Two, I feel like it says exactly what it does on the tin. So how did Escape the Corporate Wankery come from then, Phil?
Well, it was the title or the book or both?
Well, the door is open.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Well, it was never, first of all, it was never the book that I planned to write. I was working with a coach at the time, and he was helping me develop my coaching business. And he said, while we're doing this, what's the one thing that you want to get done in the next 6 months? And I said, oh, well, there's the book. I want to do a load of videos. I want to do this. I want to do that. And he said, no, what's the one, what's the one thing? The one thing. And I said, the book. And he said, well, so what's the book? And I said, well, the book is going to be a kind of a compendium and then it might be 2 or 3 books of my blog posts, my long form written stuff. That's all about job search and CV writing and interviewing and all of that sort of stuff, but put into a book. And he's like, great, okay, we'll crack on. So as I got started with that and I'd sorted everything, so I printed out all of these blogs. So I'd even printed out some LinkedIn posts and stuff, and I was sorting them all out on the landing into piles. I thought, well, yeah, that's a book and that's a book and that's. So then I kind of came back to the files and started trying to move the actual things around in the same kind of order-ish to what I'd put them in a pile, and then I was going to connect them all together with a narrative and all of this. And suddenly it just became a bit too much. I was just like, oh, this is a bit more like hard work. And I actually found it
sounds like organized chaos to me.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why I've got this background up, right? I mean, I'm in my office, but it doesn't look anything near as clean and tidy as this. organized chaos. I know where everything is. And I basically just, I decided, I can't exactly remember the moment, but I just sort of started writing something else. And I can't entirely remember what it was that I started writing. But what it was going to be was a piece about, well, I was going to call it Enough is Enough, right? That's what was kind of happening in my head. Enough is enough, as in I've had enough. So, and I want to go out and do something else, but with this kind of double meaning of you're enough.
Mm-hmm.
You are enough. And in fact, in the beginning of the book, that's sort of still there. Obviously, you always got to have a copy of it to hand. There's a bit at the very beginning that ends on, you are, there we go. You are enough. But trust me, and all the other solopreneurs in industries that have strapped in and gone for it, you are enough. And you haven't received a lot of validating praise in your life. Let me just say it again. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. So that was what it was all about, right?
Amazing.
And what, but as I started writing, sorry, I kind of pretty much virtually wrote the book, and I've got an editor on the case helping me with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I feel like I need a different title, because I started Googling it and, Amazoning it. And it turns out there was loads of books called Enough is Enough. And I also realized that if I had to explain the double meaning, then
Isn't there a song? Enough is enough is enough.
is enough. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I decided not to do that. But when I was writing it, there's a bit, and I can't remember exactly where it is. But one of my kind of early readers who happened to, I've got it in front of me trying to find it. One of my early readers who happened to be a client of mine, who was going it alone,
Yeah.
said, "Oh," he said, I love that bit where you talk about corporate wankery." And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool. Yeah, why?" So, we just know what it means. It's just like, it's just clear. And that must have been just a little seed that sowed itself in the wind, like it does. And then when it came to me thinking again about the book title, that came back up.
Yeah.
Escape Corporate Wankery.
My first sight of it was, I know what that book is about.
Yeah.
Straight away. I was like, there's a lot of books out there trying to be clever, but I knew exactly what that meant. I know what it felt like to be in a corporate environment. And yeah, maybe it's the book that I should have read 15, 20 years ago.
Well,
20 years ago.
interestingly, yeah. I mean, the way I kind of set this up, it was sort of a bit selfishly. This is the book that I'm writing for me. The book that I could have done with having what's now 11 years ago, when I first went out as an interim doing day rate contracts. And if I hadn't have done that, it would have been really useful 5 years ago when I left Amazon to become a coach.
Wow.
Although actually I didn't leave Amazon to become a coach. I left Amazon and then I became a coach. Or then
Amazing.
I started doing what I'm doing. There wasn't cause and effect directly there. But yeah, so it was written for me.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
and I kind of put together in my mind that if I had gone through those challenges of, all the mindset stuff of, I don't think I'm good enough, who's gonna buy anything from me? I'm not ready.
Yeah.
All of those sorts of things, all the stories that we tell ourselves that are ingrained in us without us realizing, limiting beliefs that we don't realize that we've got.
Mm-hmm.
If I could help somebody lift themselves out of that with a set of stories or ideas or concepts that would resonate with them,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm helping somebody else who's going through the same kind of thing as me. So that's what the first part of the book is about. The second part is who would buy anything? What would I sell, and who would buy anything from me anyway?
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of
Which is what we all go through, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of building on the confidence thing, but also saying, well, what the fuck is it I'm actually going to sell? You
Uh-huh.
know, what am I good enough to sell? So there's a whole load of kind of help in the book then about working out what your sweet spot is. You know, your ikigai.
Icky guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then you
Yeah.
get your ikigai. So there's a bit about your ikigai and kind of what that sweet spot is in the middle of the Venn diagram. And there's tasks at the end of each chapter as well to help you really think about what it is that you want to do, not just what you can do or what you could do, but what you
Yeah.
want to do and what there's maybe what the world needs and what you can get paid for. So it's not just, you know, glorified hobby.
Yeah, yeah.
No, so it kind of builds through that. And then there's the final piece is all about the different modes of working. So, you know, do you become an interim contractor charging day rates? Do you effectively become a freelancer, which is largely what I do now?
Uh-huh.
Sell passive income products, or do you do a mixture of all three? Because all are perfectly plausible.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then there's a bit somewhere in and amongst all of that in the middle, which talks about money and how a lot of people say they don't. I polled LinkedIn on this, and you know, LinkedIn is where everybody is. Uh, and the big thing that people said about going out alone, the reason why they didn't is because they didn't have the financial security. Now,
Mm-hmm.
financial security is definitely useful, but there's this whole chapter that analyzes people's finances or
Uh-huh.
helps you analyze your own finances to say, well, actually, I don't have to go all in on I don't have to quit my job.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
I can start small, you know, I can what how can I put myself out there with information or guidance that will help people help
Yeah.
my ideal client without me having to quit my job?
Yeah.
Uh, you know, I don't know that I've called it, I probably have called it a side hustle. I probably have talked about hustle in there. But it's, you know, it doesn't have to be all about having tens of thousands of quid in the bank before you can go and start something.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
yeah.
interesting actually because before I launched my photography business, which I've run since 2007, and long before I came a coach, I had that hustle entrepreneurial streak that um, when I was running my photography business, I was doing it alongside a full-time job working in the motor trade as a car salesman.
Mm,
And, you know, I was booking my holidays around when I would do, you know, if I got a wedding booking, I would book that Saturday off in 6 months' time because everything was forward planning. And all
mm,
I ended up doing was building this pot that then enabled me to take that leap. I also have another view on this as well, Phil, which I think is quite interesting, is I think sometimes having nothing gives you the energy and the fear to go for it, doesn't it? So if you don't have the money to start, well, actually, do you know what? You've got nothing to lose. And I remember probably about 2007, I was sat in the barber's and getting my hair cut, and the barber turned around to me and went, "You're setting up a photography business?" And I went, "Yeah." He went, "Best time to set it up, mate. You're in a recession." He said, "You can't get any further down than the bottom." He said, "The only way is up for you." And I've always kind of like had that in my mind that like
yeah.
even when you've got nothing, actually that's actually a very, very good place to be because you can grow from that, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll be honest, when I went out on my own initially as a contractor,
Mhm.
one of my big questions was, you know, we've got a bit of savings,
Mhm.
but this feels like a risk. Main breadwinner, you know, healthy mortgage,
Yeah, yeah.
couple of kids, all of that. And I was going, yeah, so there's all this worry about, I'm not good enough. Well, why would somebody pay me for my knowledge? You know, how could I go about this contracting business? And I suppose I had started looking at it. It's weird because I kind of forget the exact timeline, but at some point I've been looking at contract roles, day rate contract roles. So my background's in recruitment, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I've been running recruitment teams, in-house recruitment teams processes, systems, employer branding, all of that sort of stuff. And I'd been talking to recruiters about interim recruitment manager jobs where it wasn't really a business as usual role. There would be a BAU part of it, but inevitably there'd be some change element. And that's kind of what I was hankering for, because I didn't want to carry on doing BAU. That was the reason why I was
It's
kind
sometimes the
of,
thing that everyone wants, but everyone's also most afraid of, right? Is change.
yeah, absolutely. So, and the thing about being an interim, and interestingly, I heard this on another interim related podcast the other day, is that it said you've got a certain type of person, and you've got the people that want to largely do kind of iterative change, or manage BAU and manage operations and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the people who kind of who want to come into that sort of environment and go, well, why are you doing it like this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of bring new sets of eyes to things, and have a find new ways of doing things that are either more efficient, more effective, less cost, or creates the result, whatever the result is, in a better way. And that was me. So I just got bored with BAU and some other crap that was happening as well, that sort of nearly, I talk about it in the book, nearly ended up with my phone being lodged in my kitchen wall. This was the catalyst, right? Because I just got off a phone call with a regional manager who had lost another hire that I'd made for her in a sort of a fairly short period of time. And I was beyond, my emotions were bubbling.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, we ended up having this kind of walk down the garden conversation. Why don't you go out on your own, sort of thing.
Do you have a lot of gratitude for those moments then now when you look back?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the very beginning of the book, before I even do anything, the quote thing, you've got to put a quote at the beginning of your book, haven't you?
Yeah.
Says, why don't you go out on your own? Nicola Sterne, and Nicola's my wife. Nick said that. Why don't you go on your own? So she kind of first kind of reinforced the idea in my head. And if she had faith,
Yeah.
that I could make it work, and that we could still, stay living in this house, and I could pay the mortgage, and we
Yeah.
could do. And that's what happened. So, but the challenge was talking to recruiters, was that they just want people now for interim contracts. They want people now. And of course, I was
Yeah.
on 3 months' notice, and many other people are on 6 months' notice.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make kind of jumping into
Yeah.
an interim job very straightforward. You have to actually plan it ahead, and kind of have some degree of confidence in yourself that towards the end of that notice period, you're going to land a contract, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're stuffed, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so we had I don't know, it might have only been like a couple of months worth of money. So there was a risk there.
And it's interesting as well, because a lot of time people say that, a lot of people in the world are only a couple of months away from bankruptcy, don't they? So,
Yeah.
when you start thinking about it, well, actually, it sounds like you're in a good position almost.
Well, so it certainly kind of drove my hunger. And as it turned out, I resigned, and with nothing to go to. And I have done that before with a mortgage, not with kids, but I have left jobs before with nothing to go to. So I'd kind of built some level of resilience, right? So this isn't kind of like just a one-off that's come out of nowhere. I was backing myself to land something. And I guess, yeah, that's most likely a factor of my upbringing, and the support that I've had over the years, that has kind of lent to me having some self-confidence that things were going to be okay. It's
Yeah.
not that it's not laced with absolute fear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And an imposter syndrome and all of that stuff, that's all there. But what ended up happening was I quit, and then immediately my boss said, well, actually, that project for that applicant tracking system and website and all the rest of it that you wanted to do that we've not been able to get sign off for. Well, we've got sign off.
Yeah.
Do you want to stay
Wow.
and do it for 3 months? We and basically we agreed that I'd do, I think, yeah, it's 3 days a week, effectively on the same salary, but I was charging
Wow.
day rate, and that left me 2 days a week. And incredibly, I then found my first sort of proper contract. Then they were happy for me to do 2 days a week for the first, 6 weeks or whatever it was, while I was running the other one out, and then go full time.
I've
All
just actually
remote.
finished Simon Squibb's book, and he talks in his book about, when you're working in a working environment, how you should tell your boss what your plans are. Because for all you know, is your boss could be your first client. And I love that you've just said that, because I thought at the time, I'm not going to lie, I would listen to the part of the book. I thought, yeah, I can't imagine telling some of my old bosses back years ago, oh, I'm planning on going it alone. But actually, if you're doing that same sector, actually, they employed you for a reason.
Yeah.
And that you've just proved that point to that book. So that's,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, the only thing is, I'd need, because I'm not 100% how legal that, not legal. It was certainly fine at the time. But now with IR35 and the, is this effectively a permanent job in disguise? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it would take a little bit more consideration.
Yeah.
But I think if I look back, the fact that it was 3 days a week, the fact that I was contracting through my own business,
Yeah.
the fact that I was going to be doing contracts for other organizations as well. There was lots about it that would sort
You
of tick.
literally need another client just to make it
Yeah,
right, don't you? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, and that's kind of where it started. But the odd thing for me was I found that going through doing sort of multiple contracts ish back to back.
Mhm.
I loved them because it meant that I was doing all of the kind of new, exciting stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
discovery, putting in place new systems and tools and meeting new people and working in new environments and all of that stuff, which I loved. It was ticking in lots of variety boxes for me. It was hard.
Yeah, I can
There were
imagine.
times, oh my God, I remember a train trip back from Liverpool. I'd not long broken my arm, my wrist, my left wrist. I'm left-handed, right?
And a guitar player as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I wasn't playing so much at the time. It was more an issue of just being able to work,
Yeah,
write.
yeah.
Um, and it was painful as well and exhausting. But I went up to this meeting in Liverpool, and I got a bit of a roasting, really, or at least I felt I did. And I came back. I was on the train, kind of going, "Why am I doing this? This is
Mhm.
um, this is hard. And am I doing the right thing? Imposter syndrome, etc.,
Yeah,
etc."
yeah.
Just sort of had to dig into it. So there was definitely moments of that when I just thought, oh, why am I doing this to myself?
Mhm.
Um, but like anything that's hard, you learn from it, and I certainly did. But what I found ultimately from doing all these contracts was that because I was sort of so got my head in them,
Mhm.
that I'd do the work, and 6 months later, I'd almost come up for air out of the water and look around, and sort of it felt like I've never really thought about it like this. 'Cause I would normally say at this point the world had moved on, but it's almost like I popped up out of the water
Yeah.
and like the tide had moved me somewhere over there. I was like, oh, where is everybody? And like
Yeah.
kids had grown up another 6 months, and and all of this sort of stuff. There was one that I did in London, and I was away for most of the time for the best part of 7 months, and kind of FaceTiming the kids and that, walking around.
Mhm.
Um, you know, the city of London, and in the evening. And I thought, this is all very well. Kind of the day rates were great. I was earning a fortune. The work was really interesting, but I was kind of missing that home life balance.
Mhm.
It just so happened that I uh, after the last contract that I had, which was in Leamington Spa, there was like this, where are all the contracts gone?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I applied for this one that just sort of happened to be a mat leave cover at an Amazon building that I didn't realize was 10 minutes away from my house.
Mhm.
Um, and long story short, they didn't give me that job. They gave me a bigger, more interesting permanent job that,
Nice.
paid me as well as my already quite nice day rate. So I went there, and I was there for the best part of 3 years. So I was quite happy sort of to come back into the corporate fold. Um,
When
yeah.
you a minute ago, you just said about that quote from your wife when she said, "Why don't you just go on your own?" Is that how she said it?
Why don't you go out on your own?
Why don't you go out on your own? Now, I had Marcus, the alcohol-free guy, on the podcast last week, and there was a moment where he was saying about he believed in himself, and like his partner believed in him and stuff. And
Mm.
I just said to him, I said, "Do you think she believed in you because you finally believed in yourself? Do you think there's anything within that of like, she knows, she knows what you're capable of, and sometimes I think other people know what we're capable of, don't we? And but we
Mm.
still have to actually have that confirmation to then make that movement ourselves to actually, well, actually, if someone says, "Oh, you can do this," you go, "Well, actually, I've been thinking I could do this, but
Mm.
I kind of just needed someone to just go on, Phil, you can do it," kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know is the answer to the question because, uh, I mean, how how often do partners say to somebody when they say, what does your husband do? What does your wife do? Da, da, da." I really have no idea. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what they
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Um, because, I can say, I'm a recruitment manager or head of talent acquisition or I'm this, but what does that really mean? What I'm actually doing day to day? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Um, uh, but there must have been something where she had this innate belief in me, either that or she was just saying it,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but I suspect not.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just enough because I mean, the action that was the next action was to resign.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having the bottle to do that again and with no sort of clear runway of or roadmap rather of exactly what job it was that I was going to get or contract I was going to get.
So what was your transition from that then, obviously then going over to Amazon,
Mm.
and that was, you said, 3 years. So what was that transition then to kind of then, was that like a repeat scenario where you kind of wanted something for yourself, or?
No, no, I was sort of, I mean, going and working for a place like Amazon, and I'm sure it's, if you go and work for any of the, what they call the FANG businesses, don't they? The
Mhm.
Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Netflix and Google, right? You go work for any of those, um, it's always going to look good on your CV.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something interesting to do, and you're pretty much it's certain that you're going to be surrounded by some pretty talented and intelligent people, which
Mhm.
I was. And um, the the reason why I left is because I had a really shit annual review,
Right.
and I I'd had a I'd had a year and a half, or yeah, probably I've been through one review period, so this is probably my second year and a half, maybe 2 years. I forget exactly. Anyway, of a working with a great manager, and I've done some great things, and then she went off to do another role internally. Our whole team got moved into, kind of sucked into another team on a temporary basis. So I had this sort
Mhm.
of manager, as we all did, and that was only for a couple of months. And I was leading this really quite tough project that we'd got a load of money to do, and it was building a new recruitment system that was entirely focused on helping us move people from their existing fulfillment centers, so the warehouses,
Yeah, yeah.
into the new ones, because I was part of this, what they called HR launch team, right? And um, essentially, I just had this really crap review from this manager that I'd had like 2 months working with, and their only experience of really working with me was on this project that I
Mhm.
quite difficult. And then I got this crap review. It was like, what? So have you spoken to my actual manager? Yeah. And it was in London. I remember it very well because then I was going to be having then a new manager because this was all very temporary. So my new manager was sat in there as well. And it was like basically annual review 101. There shouldn't be any surprises, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You should be having conversations up front with people if there's a problem. If I think back, there may have been kind of hints at that, but there was no sort of, Phil, the review's coming up. We need you to, you're going to need to do X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, you're going to have
Yeah,
a.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was a complete surprise. No pay rise, lowest rung, although they're not, they don't tell you that, but you just know. And I was livid. I was livid. I ended up getting up out of the room and walking out. I really struggled to contain myself. I had a chat with my to be new manager, and she said, I remember the words very clearly. She said, "This is your time to shine."
Oh, that's corporate wankery if I've ever heard
Oh
it.
man, it was hideous. And the thing is, it's like one of those. It's that phrase that's just logged. Every time I hear it now, I'm just absolutely taken back to that time.
This is
Uh,
your time to
and
shine, Phil Sterne.
yeah, I went on a PIP and I did all this, and I couldn't because I was on a PIP. I couldn't apply for jobs internally, and it was all just awful. And my mental health just went right down. I lost all self confidence in my ability to do decent work. Um, I sort of started questioning everything that I was doing and my place in the business, my place in the team, and my place in myself. And then so it was all of this anyway. Long story short, I came back from October, so at the beginning of the year, and I came back at the end of or middle of October from October half term, and there was just like I wouldn't necessarily say they were shitograms, but there was my inbox was just full of stuff,
Mhm.
and I'd burnt out. I've been broken over the course of the year, not just from that review, but from a load of other stuff. I didn't feel like I was being heard, and that I wasn't getting my ideas across, and sort of started to wonder, am I literally just a square peg in a round hole here? And I broke.
Mhm.
I just broke. I was sat on the sofa, in the kitchen with my laptop, and I just started bawling and rocking my hands over my face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought if I felt like I've got two choices, like suck this up and get back, just deal with this because now's the last couple of months of the year is the time to be kind of cozying up around people and getting alignment
Yeah, yeah.
with people who are going to be in the big room when they were discussing all of the annual ratings for all the
Yeah.
people that were in the rungs below, right?
Yeah.
So that's the time to be doing all of that. And if I took time off, then I wouldn't have opportunity to do that, and I wouldn't be able to do any great work and then that. Um, but at the same time, I thought, well, I could, in my state of mind now, if I stayed at work and did all this, and the chances are that I was going to get another crap review in January. Could I cope with that? Probably not. And I was already broken. So anyway, I went off. I went off sick. I was off sick for a week. Then it became a month, and then it became 3 months. And there was some other stuff that happened during that period. And I think it's best to say I left at
Mhm.
the it's kind of middle of January.
How did that all affect your kind of not just your well-being, but like, did that affect anything else? Like was it because were you working like lots of extra hours, or were you like just trying to? Because I know in the past when I've had things like that happen, particularly when I go back probably 20 plus years ago, I worked for Volkswagen and I was a business manager, and I remember I'd get in an absolute roasting for something that
Mm.
was because the sales guys weren't selling enough cars, but that meant that I wasn't selling enough finance. So, um, I found myself going in earlier and then, you know, coming home later and stuff. And just, did you find yourself burning? I don't like that corporate wankery of burning the candle at both ends, Phil,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
did you find that?
I think whether or not I was doing more hours, I don't know, but my brain was working harder because I was just trying to make sense of everything, like I say, because I was sort of thinking about everything more than once and trying.
And you're in survival mode at that point,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah. So everything was kind of heightened. So I was whether or not it was more hours, I was certainly burning more energy. Let's put it that way. Mental energy. Um, which so when it came to when I actually broke, um, I mean, it was yeah, I was having counselling. I couldn't. Well, the basic functions, right?
Mm.
Just making some beans on toast. So just something simple, just
Out of
to
curiosity, do you put cheese on top?
well,
Yeah.
I will do it either way. Beans will go either on top of pre-prepared
Or,
toast.
or under?
Yeah,
I like a little sprinkling of cheese underneath, and then because you can't
yeah.
see it, it doesn't count. You don't have to track those calories, do you?
Well, I normally do. If I'm going to do that, I will make cheese on toast, and there'll be pepper and Worcester sauce on the cheese as it goes under the grill.
What? And then put the beans on top?
Of that, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, you blow my mind, Phil. You've literally blown my mind.
Here to serve.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And while we're on it, so ultimate comfort food for me, similar theme, and it's something that I used to make at my nan's when she was alive, was do cheese on toast, tin tomatoes,
Right.
like just in a pan, again, pepper, Worcester sauce,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and have them on top of the cheese on toast with a poached egg on the top.
Wow. Wow. We shouldn't have done this at lunchtime, Phil. I'm starving now.
Sorry.
So
Yeah.
it's funny that we just talked about food then, because I find that in those kind of moments of, I don't know, I'd like to call them a head fuck, but what was the thing that gave you the most comfort in that scenario, and what kind of was your biggest, I suppose, epiphany moment that kind of made you turn from over that state of overwhelm to, you said before when you were in that previous job, you were like away from the family and stuff. So what was the big turning point for you there, do you think?
If we're talking about while I was in that sort of
Other
state of,
than beans on toast, obviously.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the challenge was that I couldn't, so basic functions were a challenge, right?
Hmm.
So there were a few things that I did, and it was mainly art based, right? So
Oh,
apart
cool.
from talking to people, importantly, if you're going through any kind of burnout or breakdown or mental health challenge, talk to people. Absolutely. So I talked to people, um, and that was really useful because it enabled me to sort of soundboard stuff that was going on in my head,
Hmm.
um, get a little bit of HR support, and all of that sort of stuff. But I also sunk myself into art, and I'm kind of looking around trying to see if one of my sketches.
I'm wondering if you got a fake background, Phil, that you're going to pick something up and it's just going to be like a
that
magic
is,
trick.
that isn't there. I'm trying to see it now, but I can't see it. But I have got a sketchbook
Oh, nice.
that I did. I did loads of sketches in, and they were quite dark, right?
Hmm.
Over that period of just trying to get out of my own head, kind of how I was feeling, or the
Yeah,
numb,
yeah.
actually, because it was just numb. I kind of almost didn't feel anything, and the not being able to make a cup of tea properly with that, or spilling stuff. I was like um, clumsy and
Hmm.
exhausted, and all of this. And I think really, I don't know that there was a turning point as such, but it was more just like an evolution. I just
Right.
over the course of 3 months, and then when I sort of finally left, um, it was like a period of recovery, and that kind of carried on going past the middle of January 2020. But as part of the counselling I'd done,
I mean, 2020 was a strange year anyway, right?
Well, yeah, but I didn't know what was coming, right?
No, right.
So this was all sort of happening in the January, and I'd been reading, or I'd seen, or yeah, I'd seen the Simon Sinek Start With Why
Yeah.
YouTube thing, so some years previously, and I'd used it as part of my counselling to try and work out, well, what do I do next? If I'm not doing this, what am I doing?
Yeah, yeah.
And I worked out. I mean, it's not sort of strictly speaking Start With Why, but I used that as a model to kind of get me thinking. But I was just sort of effectively working out my values and what I wanted to do and what I did and didn't like. And you know how you go through your career, and with each job you go, well, I really didn't like that, but I do like this bit, so let's do
Yeah,
more.
yeah. Yeah.
And for years I've been saying to people, do what you love. I came to realize that that's got a bit of sort of toxic positivity about it.
Well, it's that if you do what you love for a job, you'll never work a day in your life. And it's like, well,
Yeah,
that's fine, but
to a point. Yeah. When's it become a hobby? So I twisted that to sort of say, well, how do I do more of what I love?
yeah,
Right.
I like that.
And it turned out that, so if I sort of thought about my experiences to date, then it would be, I didn't necessarily want to work on long projects where I was in it 5 days a week, for the reasons I've said already. I didn't necessarily want to work for an enormous organization where I felt lost. I really like working with people one-to-one and in small groups. I like helping people. I like doing creative stuff, whether that's, artwork or writing or whatever. What can I do? Oh, and a big part of what I did at Amazon was writing. There's a big culture of writing white papers to get ideas across. As a, doing presentations, you write a white paper. So I'd done loads of work on my writing, and then where all this sort of came to was, I don't know, I can't remember what exactly the light bulb moment when it was, but I thought I could write CVs. I could, and that kind of helped. That brought all of that together. Short term,
Right, yeah, of course.
one-to-one writing, contact with individual people, helping people.
And I suppose that's shorter term project as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's sort of where it started, and then that kind of quickly gained traction because I was charging effectively pence for this work, right? I had no idea. I'd gone on, created an account on peopleperhour.com, which was brilliant because it meant that I could put myself out in the world with an offer, and I had people coming to me. I publicized it on LinkedIn. People were coming to me through that, and I started writing people's CVs for them. But I was charging 45 quid because there was like ranges on there. Some people who were charging 40 quid. There was somebody charging 500 quid with a headline, experienced recruiter to write your CV, 500 quid. And I'm like, were there people charging £500 to do this? Does that
Yeah.
even exist? And there was people doing it for sort of 50 quid. I thought, well, I'll go in at 45 quid. So surprisingly, I got sort of 10 clients almost immediately in the February, which gave me 10 5-star reviews on People Per Hour.
Nice.
Which meant that I could start, doing the screen grabbing them and using them for my advertising on LinkedIn and and it all kind of snowballed from there, and quickly started putting up my prices when I had a conversation, weirdly, lady called Lisa, who was my first sort of client boss when I came out of when I got my first contract, my or slash second contract, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And she said, well, you should be charging more. Yeah, you should be charging at least 80 quid.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so time went on and I expanded what I was doing. Started sort of giving people interview coaching, and of course then there was COVID, so I did quite a lot of free stuff, pro bono support for people who are on furlough or whatever. And just
My dogs are all pro bonos, by the way. They're all pro bonios. Bad joke.
and then it sort of just grew from there. And then there were a few sort of specific points in that journey that led me to raise my prices and raise my prices and raise my prices.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and so that's kind of what happened. And then I got myself to the point where I realized that the thing that I really enjoy, I mean, I love writing CVs, don't get me wrong, but the thing that I really enjoy is actually the conversation and the coaching support that I was giving them. And people saying in the feedback afterwards, Phil, you give me the confidence to go out and get that role
Yeah.
and go and apply for that role that I would never have considered applying for before. Or, you give me my mojo back. Or the classic was, I showed it to my wife and she said, so that's what you've been doing for the last 20 years.
Wow.
Right. So it's like
Wow.
really kind of helping them get themselves and kind of trace this narrative, this thread through their career, particularly when they were, they kind of couldn't piece together, they had like different careers, couldn't piece together the thread,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that led to me expanding into kind of a broader coaching practice. And that's where I am now.
Wow. So when you went from that got into that coaching practice, then what kind of made you like decide the kind of people you work with now? Is that from the basis of the sort of the journey that you took from the book, or?
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, the people that I was working with, as I put my prices up, necessarily the people that I was attracting,
Mhm.
or and that was kind of based off the fact that I'd also attracted these people already, but it kind of made me realize that actually there was room for price increases and expansion of services, were kind of senior managers, directors, C-suite.
Mhm. Yeah.
The kind, where you call it sort of six figures and above, but a lot of my clients are under that bracket for sure. Just signed somebody today, 1,300 quid deal. Are they earning 80 grand? No, they're not, but
Mhm.
the transformation that they need, I can help them with.
Yeah.
Um, but so that's typically the kinds of people that I was working with. And what's happened over the course of time is I then started attracting kind of longer term coaching clients, but they were typically clients that I'd already done a bit of work with.
Yeah.
So I'd already helped them land a job, or I'd help them with their CV, or I'd help them with something else. Uh, and it became a bit of a thread that my long-term coaching clients, so these are ones that I'm sort of working with over the course of 12 months. There was either an inflection point for them during the coaching, or it
Mhm.
was a part of the desire at the very beginning for them to go out on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So inevitably what happened through the coaching was that I was helping them work out what their thing was, or help them deal with imposter syndrome, or help with any number of ultimately quite small, perhaps quite small challenges
Yeah. Yeah.
that they were struggling to deal with on their own, but that had big results, big impacts. You kind of freed them up, help them get over the limiting beliefs. So yeah, so typically the people I was working with were senior people that then wanted to go and do something else, go out on their own. Not exclusively that.
Mhm.
One guy I was working with, and again, sort of senior ops role. Um, it turned out, I knew him as being a sort of a massively confident guy.
Mhm.
His confidence had been hugely eroded, much like mine had. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I worked with him on all manner of different things to sort of help his confidence and get pay rises, and navigate internal politics and all of that sort of stuff. So it was all very kind of careers oriented. But then another client I can think of, when I asked him about if we bumped into each other in 3 years' time, and he said, "Shit, Phil, I've had the most amazing year. Let me tell you
Mhm.
about it."
Yeah.
And he listed all these different things, half a dozen different things, and then he finally said, the seventh thing was, "Oh, and I'm probably getting a job that I enjoy."
Yeah.
So what I found really enjoyable about this kind of phase of my work has been helping people uncover the stuff that's actually more important to them than their work.
Yeah.
So uh, he takes a travel guitar around with him in his suitcase when he travels enormously as part of his job. But one of the things that he wanted to be able to do was play the guitar properly.
Amazing.
Now has a weekly guitar lesson online, and he takes travel guitar with him so he can keep that up. And he's lost a load of weight, and he's done all sorts of different stuff as a result of the coaching, which started out just about talking about his getting a new job when he was being made redundant after 20 years.
I think many people are held back by what they think they should do. And, you know, you find people that are, like you say, what I'm loving about what you're talking about is like you're finding there's people in these corporate roles that, you know, we say about limiting belief, but years and years and years ago, it was you know, what do you want to be? Where do you want to work? There's never like, what would you like to be able to offer other people? Like, how would you like to, you know, give other people value? And there's never especially in the school systems, when I was a kid anyway, was never like, what could you do as a business? And I feel like in the way of the world, you're forced into this, like this energy of, you have to go get a job, you have to go to university, you have to go to school, you have to go to college, you have to do all of this stuff. But actually, a lot of the time, that can actually overshadow some of the things that we actually do want.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's quite reasonable to think of the school system and the fact that, you know, you have lessons to learn stuff, but ultimately you're taught how to pass the exam.
Mhm.
And, you know, that will lead to a career, and the more you earn in your career, the more tax you pay.
Yeah.
Right. And there's not really, okay, so you can do like a business A level or whatever, you know.
Normally taught by someone who's never run a business as
We'll
well, which
never
I
run a
always
business,
find really
right?
funny. Bit like our government.
So it's not sort of entrepreneurial, and I don't necessarily consider myself as an entrepreneur because I don't, although I do have assets now in the shape of this book, which I can build out into something. But you know, I'm absolutely a freelancer, really. The yeah, there's not the teaching or the mentorship or the role models, I don't think, for young people today to go out and run their own businesses, unless, you know, it's to be a YouTuber or an influencer. I mean, I've
Yeah.
got quite a narrow view of this, but I just don't think that people have necessarily got those mentors or got um, those role models. Even though there's some great work out there from organizations like Young Enterprise. I remember when I was a sixth former, we did Young Enterprise. I don't know if you did it or sort of saw it, or if you were busy going off recording music, having fun.
Probably
But
just being a bit nuts though, mate. I've definitely been the one who would stray from the system at any given point. I think
well,
the most discipline I had growing up in my sort of schooling, other than my parents, was I joined the Air Cadets, and I was forever in our flight officer's office getting a bollocking. I think I did a Donald Duck impression once during during we were doing drill training, and the guy he was like a 10 like that, and then me and my best mate went shun in Donald Duck voice. We've both got marched in there. I'm like, that's been my life.
yeah, okay, all right. Well, so there's this thing called Young Enterprise,
Yeah.
where they help where business people,
Mhm.
yeah, volunteers will go into schools and kind of coach and mentor groups of students to basically establish a small business. And
Yeah.
then, you know, they do uh, sort of a regional round. It's a competition. Yeah. So it's a big organization. They'll do like a local round where they go to trade fairs, or they set up specific trade fairs. Then you do a regional thing, and then you do a presentation. You have to actually submit accounts and all of this proper stuff.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's really good. I loved it. And but I think that's it. You know, and schools aren't equipped for, yeah, they're equipped for teaching kids the curriculum to pass
Yeah.
an exam. They're not equipped for teaching them how to become business people. Um, so uh, so So yeah, I don't know.
Who's been your biggest role model in your, I suppose I'm going to be really broad now and saying like in your whole journey to kind of where you are today?
Wow.
Is there
Um,
someone or a person who's inspired you on the journey? Or I,
um,
I love that you went so still. Then I was like, did Phil freeze or is he
feel
thinking?
free. I've just hit freeze and then walked off. Um, well, if I think about coaching, as a coach that I find really inspiring,
Hmm.
is a guy called Rich Litvin,
Hmm.
who co-wrote a book called The Prosperous Coach.
Right.
Uh,
Okay. Cool.
um, he, which is a book all about, not about coaching. Actually, it's about the business of coaching. So
Hmm.
connecting, inviting, and creating great clients and proposing to um, coaching contracts to clients. And I find him really inspiring.
Oh, cool.
Other than that, I think it's, I mean, if I sort of think back actually and maybe get a bit deep, my mum worked for herself as a freelancer in various different capacities when I was younger. And so maybe there's a bit of that that um, has kind of rubbed off on me there, because I've kind of for some time felt like there was something more that I could be doing. And the danger of that is that there's always the next thing, right? When you
Yeah. Yeah.
that is can be quite difficult to kind of pause and just sort of celebrate what you've done.
Sounds like a very entrepreneurial thing, that, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they build something and then they go, oh, what next? Or
What next? Yeah, what, and it's weird because I was always quite materialistic to some degree. I suppose I still am, but I always wanted wanted a nice car, wanted a nice holidays, wanted a nice this, that, and the other, um, which was not something that I was kind of imbued with as a
Mhm.
child. But now I think, having kind of reached a point of relative success in my Amazon job,
Mhm.
the nice big salary and, traveling all over the world and all this sort of stuff, and a nice car and et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of going through that process that I've described. It's kind of like brought it all back down to, actually, what do I want? And that's freedom. That's what, that's kind of at the top of the tree for me,
Mhm.
is freedom. Freedom to be able to, broadly speaking, do what I want, where I want, when I want, with who I want. Um, and,
Beautiful. Love that.
and some of that come, within the confines of a family and friends and, life and work and all the rest of it. Um, I see entrepreneurs that sort of, or freelancers that go, right, well, I'm young enough and footloose and fancy free enough. And there's a guy I know who's a copywriter. He's bogged off to Cyprus. He lives over there,
Yeah.
living the
Yeah.
life, of Riley. But comparison is the thief of joy. So I kind of say that now, although it's hard and I'm still working it out, we all are, right?
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Still working it out. That actually I've created that for myself, and I have got the freedom to do that, and I've still got the backing to do that. And yes, sometimes I have a great month, sometimes, or year, sometimes, it's can be a bit iffy if you're
Mhm.
creating things and kind of trying to move things forward. But yeah, that's kind of part and parcel of what we do. I, I've created that for myself, and I have the freedom to do that. And um, day to day, I can pretty much go and do what I want. And all I know is that the output metric is as a result of the input metric. And if I'm getting the inputs right, then the outputs will come.
I love that. I love that. It's it's a kind of a great reflection, because I think freedom to a lot of people has very different meanings. We have a very similar view on freedom. And, freedom to me is, more time with my wife, my daughter, to just make, magical memories really that we get to, and it's as simple as, I wrote this the other day about, going to a gig with my wife, and it is that kind of just having those moments together that actually, again, sorry to go back to Marcus again, but Marcus was talking about his nephews remembering the memories of going to Wembley, and it's the memories that we make. It's not necessarily the lavish gifts, the fast cars, the I mean, I swear the older I've got, the more practical my life has become, and I'm like, oh, actually, that is what feels more successful to me. Actually, do you know what? Having a van, I could go and do a tip run in, and go to the beach, and put the dogs in, and get to the DIY store. I'm like, hang on a minute, that's way more practical, and that to me feels like freedom.
Well, this is exactly it, and I've got a van as well, for exactly all of those reasons.
I love that.
And I sort of sit there thinking, I'd really like a BMW M2, and I know that I test drove one a couple of years ago, and well, in fact, I test drove a few, and what I found was that
You can't get a ladder in it.
well, it wasn't. To be fair, it wasn't a test that I did.
All right.
I didn't sort of look at that at all. What I did do though was I took it on some twisty stuff, which was all very well and good, but it was almost too fast to enjoy properly. And in fact, I sort of went down the slip road onto the A38, and before I knew it, I was having to back off because I was going to be going too quick. But there was no sort of, it was just there. It was great, it was hilarious, but there was kind of theatre about it. So instead, I went and bought a 10-year-old Renault Clio RS for $7,000 or something, and I've still got it. It's great because I can sort of still get the thrill of driving it, and it's okay, hot hatch, nearly 50, man, but who gives a shit? And I don't. It's good fun. So it's kind of like looking at the trappings and going, well, where can I get my most fun smiles per pound, if you like. But also when I think of freedom, I don't sort of just think of freedom to do the things that I want to do, but it's also freedom from. So I'm free from the micromanagement. I'm free from the having to cozy up with colleagues in order
the Christmas party.
Well, yeah, in order that they may have some influence when it comes to my review and all of that sort of bullshit, or having to play back corporate values in a way of sort of trying to influence somebody, or just like loads of stuff that I'm free from that. Right. So there's real push and pull for going it alone. There's always push and pull factors. The push factors may be the catalyst, right? But the pull factors have absolutely got to be there. The desire to be doing something on your own, or not that you are ever really on your own, but doing something on your own, under your own steam, with your own ideas and building your own clients and all the rest of it.
And the rewards and the payoff for then that I did this, right?
Well, yeah, and and that may be financial, or it may not be financial. I mean, I know going into this, well, going a couple of years ago when I've sort of switched from just doing the CVs into kind of going, I could actually work with people on a long-term basis and launch a coaching offer, and have conversations with people that turn into a long-term coaching agreement. I could feel it in my bones that there was something kind of over the horizon in 2023, and that happened. I doubled my income by having this sort of separate line of work, or kind of additional coaching practice. And not only that, but it was just enormously rewarding, helping people kind of make these sort of groundbreaking changes in their lives. It's just absolutely fabulous.
And then it's a knock-on effect for them, right?
An absolutely knock-on effect for them. Absolutely. So now it's kind of, well, what's on the other side of this book? I never wrote the book, as I said to, I never intended to write this book. But what I'm contemplating now, and what you'll see come out, will be that this is going to turn into an ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, that's not Phil Sterne, because everything has been Phil Sterne. This is now going to be about escape corporate wankery. So, you know, there'll be the book, there'll be follow-up books, there'll be the webinar, there'll be the program, there'll be speaking. So we're, you know, I'm doing it now. You know, we're having a conversation about it now. So that for me is kind of like, that's the next thing. And
I love that.
You know, like, you know, when you go and do like a Lake District walk or something, you know, a fell walk, and you think you're looking up and you think you can see the summit.
Yeah.
Right. And you go, right, I'm nearly there. Right. Okay. And you get up to that point and you realize it's just a ridge, and you know, and all you can see is the next ridge. But it's quite a tough climb to get up there, right?
Yeah.
So you might need some help, or you might need to slow down, you might need to pause and reflect, or turn around and actually look how far you've come.
Yeah.
Right. But what you're never quite sure of is what's on the other side of that ridge.
Yeah.
So I feel like at the moment I'm walking to or getting towards climbing up this ridge and kind of working my way along it. And that's kind of what that's what I help my clients do, right? Walking up to this ridge and kind of planning what this ridge could be.
Yeah.
Without being particularly attached to what's on the other side.
Yeah.
You know,
so how can people find the book, Phil? Where do people find the book, and how can they find out more about working with you?
Well, now they can Google it and they'll find it. So if you Google escape corporate wankery, you should find the book.
And that's available on Amazon?
It is for sale on Amazon. Absolutely.
That's irony right there, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. It's it didn't escape me. The moment I thought, well, I want to self-publish this book, it's like, well, where am I going to do
it? Amazing. So where else can people find you? I know you're on LinkedIn.
So on LinkedIn. So I'm sure you'll put these in the show notes, but I'm mainly on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot, and of course my website, which is philsterne.com.
Nice.
Very straightforward to find, but I
love that.
With Google that or the book title, you will find me somewhere in there.
Amazing. Phil, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And like I said, when we first met, I literally was drawn so quickly to escape the corporate wankery, because many people that I know and myself have been through it, and you've just told your story of it. And really, really thank you for sharing your story, and appreciate it. Thank you, Phil. And that wraps up today's episode of the Coffee, Chaos and Confidence podcast with me, Coach Casey. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps other listeners find the show. Also, go and check out the show notes to learn more about my incredible guests. Until next time, make sure you chase your dreams without limitations.